Suicide is the most common cause of death for pregnant women and women in the first year after childbirth. It's not high blood pressure, it's not diabetes, it's not you know, the other things that we worry about. It's suicide, and yet it is the thing that we screen for the worst.
My midwife at the time said to me that if I didn't stop crying after day 7, that she would be wanting me to go to the doctor. So on day 7 I made myself stop crying so that I didn't have to go to the doctor. And I just forced myself, literally, because I was in tears every single day. So I knew that there was something wrong, but it took me 9 months to actually recognise that I had to do something about it. By that time, my energy was extremely low. I could barely get off the couch. It took all my energy just to look after Nathan, my son.
What alerted me to the fact there was something wrong was that I wasn't sleeping and my baby was. He was sleeping through from 3 months old, and I had chronic insomnia, and I was just lying awake and kind of feeling anxious all the time, and he was absolutely fine. And it was just like there was a switch had gone off in my brain, and it was, yeah, it was quite hard to explain really, but I kind of didn't really realise that there was anything wrong. I didn't feel 100%, and I'd go to coffee groups with other mums, and I didn't feel the way they felt. I felt sort of quite different. I felt like I was struggling, and they seemed to have everything together, and I just didn't feel that way at all, you know. And everything seemed hard. I mean, all my energy went into looking after my son, and I was just exhausted. I wasn't sleeping. And so eventually, after about, I think, 6 months, this kind of went on, and I went to my doctor, and I told her what was going on and how I was feeling, and she initially prescribed me sleeping tablets, and that didn't work. And so I just kind of went in this downward spiral, really, and I was just struggling to cope and to manage the day-to-day living and everything. And then in desperation, because I was just feeling so awful, I finally went back and saw another doctor, and she said, "Oh, you've got postnatal depression." I was just like, "Oh." So, and I mean, I knew what postnatal depression was. I was educated about it. I didn't have the risk factors. But I think sometimes when you're in that cycle, you don't actually recognise it yourself. You just know that there's something really, really wrong. And so it was just great to get that clarity, or that this is what the problem is. And so I did go on antidepressants for a little while, and that did help quite a lot. It meant that I was able to sleep, so obviously I had more energy, and I was living in West Auckland at the time, and there was a really good postnatal support group out there. So I went to that, and just became really aware of looking after myself, and, you know, taking time out and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I did.
If I had been told, if I'd been made aware that, one, I was at risk, and I kind of knew it anyway, but if someone had actually recognised that, if they'd also told me medication is not going to help you on its own, because medication doesn't help you on its own. There's no way that you can get better long term if all you do is treat it with medication. It just doesn't work like that. So because I didn't have full information about what does it mean, what could be going on, what do the symptoms look like, here's what I think is going on, and this is what you can do to recover. If I'd had all of that, I don't think that it would have been such a hard road for me.
It would have helped if, when I first went to the doctor, if she had have recognised what was going on rather than just giving me sleeping tablets, because then it was another 3 or 4 months before I really got the help that I needed. So, and I mean, I was doing lots of research online initially about insomnia and stuff, thinking that was the problem, and not actually recognising that it was the postnatal depression which was causing the insomnia. And I did the Edinburgh scale as well. I found that online and did the checklist, and I recognised from that I was depressed as well. So, but yeah, so I just became aware, and, you know, with the help of some antidepressants for a little while, of you know, looking after myself and nurturing myself, and not just pouring all my energy into this baby, which is, you know, the natural thing to do as mothers. But yeah, it's a big learning curve.
After I had my daughter, I very much like the stories that you and Kirsty have told. I just thought that I wasn't coping, you know. I really thought there was just something wrong with me and that I wasn't very good at this mothering thing, you know. And I wasn't very good at dealing with the 2-year-old. I was, and I had a baby that slept, you know. But I still felt exhausted all the time. I still felt like I wasn't coping. And eventually when she was about a year old, I went to the GP about something else. And she said, "And how are you doing?" And I just erupted into tears and just was like, I'm angry all the time. I can't get off the couch. I'm exhausted. You know, I've got 2 great kids and I don't know why I'm not enjoying this. And she said, "Well, it sounds like you've got postnatal depression." And at that point I thought, but I felt like this a lot of times in my life, you know. So actually I realised that depression had always been an issue for me, but no one had ever talked about it to me. And I just thought it was normal. I just thought that's how I felt. I was just a defective unit. So from that point on, I got medicated. I went to counselling. And it really has changed my whole life. Being diagnosed with postnatal depression has not just changed my parenting, but changed my whole life.
So I first realised that I had postnatal depression after visiting my family doctor. I had about a 1-year-old child and a sort of 3.5-year-old child, and I had had very low iron during my pregnancy with my second child, partly in fact due to the fact that I lost a baby between them and I lost a lot of blood. So that second pregnancy I was pretty low in everything, and iron and all kinds of things, and so I went to see the doctor and I said, "Look, I think I've got anemia, you know, I can't get out of bed, I think I must be incredibly low in iron." And you know, I would sort of get up in the morning and just, you know, if my husband was around, I would just go back to bed for the day, and you know, I could have done this for days on end. And so she suggested to me that I might have depression, and I was really shocked. I was like, no, it's not depression. And you know, you know, I got her to do a whole lot of blood tests, and even though I was a little bit low in iron, there was nothing really to account for the fact that I felt so incredibly low. And one of the key questions that she asked me was, do you have anything to look forward to? Do you feel like you have anything to look forward to? And I didn't. And I think that that's always stuck in my mind, that depression is perhaps a state of feeling completely hopeless and helpless and like you're trapped. And the situation that I was in, aside from having had sort of 3 pregnancies back to back and having very low iron and losing a baby and not really having time to recover from it, I was also in a situation where I was very isolated. I was living out in Rocky Bay, so none of my friends would come and visit me because it was too hard for them to come with all their little ones all the way out there. My husband worked in town every day, and we had a sort of almost crippling mortgage, which meant that there was basically very little money for our weekly budget for our food, and very little money for petrol, and certainly no money for any special things like clothes or moisturizers or nights out or anything. So I basically was very isolated. I was very trapped. So the counsellor wanted to put me onto the doctor wanted to put me onto antidepressants, and I was very against that. I was very opposed to it. I felt that that wasn't something that I wanted to do. So what I got was 6 weeks free counselling, which your doctor can give you, and I went to see one of the local counsellors, and after sort of 4 weeks of seeing her, I realised that actually I did need a bit of medical help, and so I started to take some antidepressants. The adjustment period for them was pretty yucky. I felt nauseous a lot. But once they kicked in, I realised that it was like taking the dark glasses off, literally, and I just felt like I was alive again. And so this was quite some time ago. My 1-year-old's now 5 years old, so I'm 4 years down the track. My marriage did end up ending 18 months ago, and partly that was due to this financial situation that we got into and the kind of pressures that you have in a relationship with 2 small children. But one of the things that I wish I'd known then that I know now is actually what a huge difference diet and exercise can make to depression. Exercising daily, doing yoga, or even just walking along the beach or getting out of the house and doing something even when you don't feel like it can make you feel so much better. And the other thing is I've gone onto a raw food diet, and I actually have a new raw food business as well. So I drink a lot of green juice, and I eat things like smoked snapper and salad, fresh fruit, nuts and seeds. I stay away from carbohydrates and processed food, and I've found that this has meant that I've actually been able to wean myself off the antidepressants in the last 6 months. And so now I am free both of the antidepressants and of the depression. But I'm still having awareness. You know, some days I can have some really difficult days with my children or with my business, and I just have to make sure that I don't have adrenal reaction, which is kind of getting freaked out and getting stressed and feeling panicked. Instead, what I do is just try and take 10 deep breaths and say, look, it's only Waiheke and people have to wait a bit longer today, then that's the way it is. And I've also found that talking openly with lots of other women has made me realise, you know, a number of things. 1 in 4 women have miscarriages. I don't know the statistics for depression, but I pretty much say that at least 50% of my female friends suffer from depression from time to time. And yeah, so I feel like at this point, 4 years down the track, I've managed to get through it. But if I ever had another baby, I think I would have much more awareness much sooner of what the signs and symptoms are, and I wouldn't end up so far down the track and in such a bad state.
There is a need for postnatal support, postnatal depression support services everywhere. 15% of women who have a baby are affected by postnatal depression to some degree. If I suspect someone's got postnatal depression, I have 2 options. I can refer them to their GP, which is a bit of potluck about who they get to see and how they're feeling on the day and how seriously they take the issue. My other option is to refer them to maternal mental health, who are, for a long time they wouldn't take referrals from midwives, but they are now. But they're incredibly under-resourced. There's waiting lists, you know, and it means going across to Auckland. For someone who's barely able to get out of bed, that's just too hard.